Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the channel again and I hope all of you are doing well. My name is Amod Kumar and today, as per my promise that I will be covering few topics before your UGC NET exam on 28th of June. Here I am with the lecture on art and architecture in ancient India. We have a dedicated group for UGC NET June 2025 cycle. Exam is due on 28th of June. All of you must know that. So taking that date in consideration, today after a long time I got time for recording a lecture. PPTs are ready for art and architecture, so it will be a kind of series of lectures where I will be covering art and architecture from ancient to modern, including different aspects which I am going to discuss. So first of all, we will be discussing about the Buddhist architecture, and in that we will be discussing stupa architecture, pillar architecture and cave architecture. So for cave architecture, remember one thing, that it is not limited only to Buddhism. Okay, so in the next lecture, this is the first part of the lecture which we are going to discuss, that art and architecture in ancient India. So this is the first part. In the second part, we are going to discuss the temple architecture or the evolution of temple architecture, and in that we will be discussing the evolution of Dravidian, Nagar and Viharas style. And apart from that, we will be doing some important regional architecture as well. In the third part of this lecture, we are going to discuss the sculpture, and in that we will be doing Gandhara, Mathura, Amravati and some offshoots of these architectural or sculpture styles. In the fourth part of this lecture, I will be covering painting, which I forgot to write here. So the fourth part of this lecture will be on painting, and in that actually I will be covering from ancient to modern. Whole I will be covering in a 1.5 hours or 2 hours lecture. I will be covering paintings from the Stone Age to modern India. Okay, so it will be an extensive lecture on that stylistic feature, the type of color they used, okay, the region in which that painting was important. So these things are important. So this is the all about the lecture on painting. First we will start with the Buddhist architecture, and in that first we will be discussing stupa architecture. So in that first we will be discussing about the important features of stupa architecture. What are the important features? So earlier they were asking about that Hermika and is the part of which kind of architecture, and they also ask about the terminology. So if you understand these things, you will be easily able to mark it in your answer sheet. So first I will be discussing about the features of stupa architecture, and second thing I will be discussing about the important stupas and important associated facts with those stupas, which they usually ask in the exam. Before we proceed, it is for the students who are in the study group on Telegram. So we have one study group on Telegram. You can join that group as well for December cycle. So we will be starting soon for December as well, and I'll give the group link in the description of this video. You can check it out and you can join that. So it is for the students who are in that group. So as you know, we have already finished ancient and medieval. Apart from few topics which I will be covering, we already covered these two phases, and few topics are remaining in modern. So by today evening I will be updating that reading list for modern and historiography. So anyways, we are going to finish this course by 20th of June, and Before we wind up this course, I have some homework for you for the next 2-3 days. Apart from doing that regular study, regular reading, you have to do certain things. So in each and every session I said, I clearly indicated that you have to note down certain things whenever you are reading a particular topic or particular reading, which I already gave in the group. So first thing about Harappan civilization. You need to revise this topic. Sorry. Yeah. So first topic for revision is Harappan civilization, and in that you have to revise sites, artifacts, who discovered that site, and the nature of site, whether it's early Harappan, late Harappan, and mature Harappan phase. And one more thing, if there is any river passing through that site or nearby that site. So these 4-5 facts you need to remember for like majority of the sites you remember. So and particularly focus on the less famous sites, because they have tendency of asking from the area where people actually don't go. Okay, so you focus on the less known sites and focus on these particular aspects. Second topic for revision is Vedic age, and in that topic I mentioned that you need to go through the Vedic literature, and particularly the description of society, economy, polity in those literature. Okay, so this you have to go through. And the third topic is age of Mahajanpad or Janpadas, Mahajanpadas. So here also you have to go through site, geographical area, capital city of those Mahajanpadas, and important rulers, or if there is any sort of important fact about whether it was a kind of economic town, temple town, or whether there was some sort of any kind of river going through that site or going through that capital city of that Mahajanpad. So these facts are important for your exam. So for the time being, for the next 2-3 days, I would ask you to revise these 3 topics, okay, before we further proceed. Okay, let's just start the topic then. So here we are going to start the stupa architecture. So first and foremost thing you need to remember is that stupa architecture is not originated basically because of the Buddhism. Okay, so whenever they give you a statement that stupa architecture originated in, it is having the origin in Buddhism, it is not. Okay, so then actually the origin of stupa is pre-Buddhist in nature. Okay, it is not Buddhist, it is pre-Buddhist. So before the rise of Buddhism there was some sort of stupa, but the thing is there is complexity in excavation, and also you might have an idea that stone and bricks, particularly stone, was not used in the kind of that early Vedic and later Vedic phases for the construction thing. So they were using that perishable items, and for example you can see that 40 like that we have some that 40 pillar palace of that Chandragupta Maurya in Kumrar Patna. So we have only few logs of that kind of pillars remaining there. Okay, so you can see that those perishable items could not withstand the complexity of time. Okay, so it is like more than 2000 years old, so it could not withstand the time. So those perishable items, if the people were making stupas of perishable items, it would not have possible to survive this 2500 years. So the stupa architecture is having pre-Buddhist nature. And so what are the references then? Why I am making this point is that in Rig Veda you see that there is a term mentioned that in the Greh Sutra, which was like it is a part of later Vedic literature, where the Greh Sutra was written, and it is actually on the domestic ritual. It is a kind of manual for domestic ritual. So in Rig Veda also, in Greh Sutra also, there is a reference of mound building over cremation sites for the honored dead. So if somebody was dying, people used to build mound over his cremated area. So this was earlier the practice, and also if you can relate it, some megalithic cultures were also practicing this type of making of dome with the stones. Okay, so if you have not watched the videos on megalithic culture, I don't think I have covered it, but if I have not covered it, I'll cover later. Okay, so meanwhile I have already given you the reading list on megalithic site. If you are in the study group, you might have been an idea about that megalithic sites. So yeah, so before that it was in practice. It is clear with the examples and with the reference I gave. So let's discuss about the features of this stupa architecture. So first thing we have to discuss is this hemispherical structure, which is called or anda, and apart from that, on the top of this there is a square structure which is called harmika. Okay, so anda or dome is the symbolic representation of enlightenment, and harmika symbolizes the realm of gods. Okay, on the top of harmika, you can see here on the top, in the right side of this picture, there is chhatri or chhatras fire. So these chhatris are actually indication or the representative of Buddha. Wait, sorry for that. Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, which is considered as three ratna of Buddhism. Okay, Buddha means it is not about the person, rather it is about the enlightened one. Buddha means enlightened one. Okay, and Dhamma means that doctrine which let people enlightened. So apart from that, Sangha, you already know that Sangha is a kind of community where monks used to stay. So this chhatri or chhatra is having symbolic representation as harmika and dome. Apart from that, you can also see, actually I forgot to mention that this diagram and this representation is from Sachi. Okay, it is called the epitome of stupa architecture. Okay, so this has been taken from Sachi, and whatever images I have used in this slides, I give proper acknowledgement to them that I have copied from somewhere. It is not my creation, and yeah, so let's proceed further. So we already discussed about chhatra, harmika and anda. Next thing we have to discuss is about medhi, toran and pradakshinapath. Three things. So medhi is actually this inner wall surrounding the dome, and if you can see, there is a gap between this medhi and this dome also, and there is a gap between this medhi and this vedika as well. So vedika is the outer wall of that, outer fortification of that dome, and this was separated by pradakshinapath, where people used to circulate this and worship this kind of or do that dhyana, and there was some people used to circulate this in anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so these things are like, these are not very important fact, but if you remember it will be very nice. Apart from that, torans were the entrance gate, and in the stupa at Sanchi we got four toran dwars, and these were actually decorated, highly decorated with the life of the stories of the life of Buddhas and Jatakas stories. Okay, here I have explained everything. Here you can see, and one thing I have to explain it here again is most of these stupas were actually built on the relics of Buddha or important figures of Buddhism, which were actually respected by his followers. Okay, sometimes these structures also contained inscriptions and symbols. Okay, lotus, wheel, like these kind of symbols they incorporated. Apart from that, few stupa complexes were also having separate areas for meditation. Okay, so meditation is an important part in Buddhism, so few of those were also having meditation kind of space. Next thing we have to discuss is about the important stupas in India. So yeah, here I am starting from stupa at Sanchi. Okay, so you already know a lot of things about the stupa at Sanchi. Sanchi is in Madhya Pradesh, and it was built by Ashoka in 3rd century BCE. It is believed that Ashoka built 84,000 stupas in his lifetime. Whether this figure is correct or not, we are not going into that, but one thing is clear, that he built numerous stupas in different places, and few of those actually we are surviving. So only few we have, but he built a lot of stupas. I don't know how close it was to 84,000, but the thing is he built a lot of stupas. Okay, so here this stupa, as I said, is having hemispherical dome and a circular railing called harmika, which I already discussed, and 4 intricately carved toran dwars or toran gates, and these gates are depicting Jataka tales, which already I mentioned. Next thing we have to discuss is about stupa at Vaishali. Vaishali, all of you must know that this is the place of Lichavis. Okay, so here this stupa was also built by Ashoka, and it also follows the traditional hemispherical shape of early Buddhist stupa, which symbolizes a burial mound. The structure was made of brick and likely went through several renovations over the centuries. Renovations, can you focus on this word? So renovations were done not only the stupa in Vaishali, it was done at a lot of Buddhist sites nearby Patna or Patliputra, because Patliputra was the center of power for more than 1000 years. Okay, so and also it was a very influential and affluent city in ancient India. So yeah, so this stupa is also accompanied by Ashokan pillar. Okay, so one of his pillars is in Vaishali with the stupa. Okay, and this pillar is having single seated lion. We will be discussing about this lion capital and the pillar architecture also I will be discussing later on. But one thing you need to remember is, at the same site in Vaishali there is one stupa also, and there is one single seated lion capital pillar as well. Next stupa is Kesaria stupa. Kesaria stupa was originally built by Emperor Ashoka, and later it was expanded. So it is also in Bihar, and its significance is that this stupa is one of the largest in the world and is associated with Buddha's final journey. It is believed that Buddha gave his begging bowl to Lichavis at this site, telling them he would attain nirvana soon, means he is going to die soon. This is what he said to the Lichavis of Vaishali. Talking about the architectural style, it is a 104 feet tall stupa, and it is having impressive structure, and some sort of excavation is still remaining. Next stupa is Dhamek stupa, and it is in Sarnath, Uttar Pradesh. This was built in 5th century CE. Okay, remember this was the Gupta period, and this was the site where Buddha delivered his first sermon. You must know that Buddha delivered his first sermon in Sarnath, and I actually did not covered the philosophical and this kind of information in our lecture on religion and philosophy in ancient India. But if you want me to explain it, I can explain it well through one special lecture on Buddhism, where I can cover each aspect of the philosophical thing of Buddhism, and also the kind of patronage they were getting, the Buddhism was getting from the rulers. So I can cover like that in a single lecture. So maybe we will think about it later on, maybe in the next cycle. So in this cycle we don't have time, so like that also we can cover. So yeah, so this was the site where Buddha gave his first sermon, and where there the stupa was built in the 5th century CE. So here you can clearly see that this is not the regular architectural style the stupa was actually designed to have. So this is rather a cylindrical structure, okay, about 33 meters high, which is roughly 100 feet, with a broad base and a distinctive circular form. So you can see that there is broad base, then above it there is a narrower kind of structure which is also in cylindrical shape, and this is decorated with some intricate carvings of lotus flowers and various symbols related to Buddhism. So these are the facts you needed to remember about Dhamek stupa. Apart from that, next stupa is Amravati stupa. It is in Andhra Pradesh, and it is one of the largest stupa in the country, dating back to 3rd century BCE. Features a large hemispherical dome and is adorned with beautifully carved pillars and relief sculptures. Okay, so the style of sculpture will be doing that. Amravati style of sculpture will be doing in detail. But before that, you can think about the sculptural things in the Amravati stupa. Okay, and this stupa was probably built by Satavahanas and Ikshvakus of that region. Okay, and yeah, so Amravati School of Art will be covering in a separate video, and there are sculptures which actually depicts the life of Buddha or the Jatakas stories also. So this is about the Amravati stupa. Next is the Kushinagar stupa, and it is also in Uttar Pradesh. It marks the site of Buddha's parinirvan or final nirvan, means death. So this was the place where he died, and contains a large mound like stupa that houses relics of Buddha. Okay, so Buddha's body remains are there. Apart from that, features ruins of ancient monasteries and images depicting the Buddha's last moments. So there are imageries, there are a sculpture which actually depicts Buddha's last phase of his life, and also this was considered as the ancient ruins of monasteries as well. So there was some sort of monastery before the stupa. Yeah, so next thing we have to discuss is about the Mauryan pillars. Here you can see that this is the same pillar from Vaishali. Okay, many of you might not recognize it, but see here that single seated line is there, and it is from the side of that stupa. That this is why the stupa is not visible, that stupa in Vaishali. So few things you need to remember about the pillar architecture in the Mauryan period. And pillars were actually these were monolithic. Okay, means it was carved out of single rock. Okay, and it was made up of sandstone, which was highly polished, making it very shiny, and as I said, it was monolithic in nature. Apart from that, its height was actually between 12 to 15 meters, roughly 40 to 50 feet, and it weighed around like several tons. And these pillars were actually made somewhere else, and then it was transported across great distances for their final installation. Okay, talking about the features of this pillars, first thing you need to remember is that we will start from bottom. Okay, so or maybe top, we can start from top. So this is the epitome of pillar architecture. As I said, that Sanchi is the epitome of dome architecture, that's stupa architecture. Likewise, this Sarnath pillar is the epitome of the pillar architecture. Okay, so this pillar is also taken from Sarnath. This is a conjectural view, this is not real. Okay, some things are lost from this, but still we have this in a well preserved format. Okay, and most of you might have you just comment it where you can see this thing. Okay, this, let me tell you, this is the national emblem of India. Okay, that 4 lion Sarnath capital. Okay, so this is the national emblem of India. So okay, starting from top, this is chakra, or chakra is here as well, you can see that, and this is a wheel, and this wheel was having 24 spokes. Okay, and you know that this spoke is also in our Tiranga. Okay, in our flag. Apart from that, there is capital. Okay, so you can see there are basically 3 parts. This is capital, this is shaft, and this is the vase, bell shaped vase, which was providing a base for that shaft, or not shaft, sorry for that, this provides the base for this capital. Okay, where the symbolic representation of his philosophy was actually given the final shape. Okay, so here you can see the capital was sitting on the top of this whole structure, and it was having a abacus before or below that capital, and abacus was providing sort of base for the capital. Apart from that, we had larger portion of this pillar as shaft. It was, as I said, the whole structure was monolithic, so this was actually carved out, this whole thing was carved out from a single rock, and shaft was really very polished area. Particularly, it was not having any sort of other structure, any sort of other sculpture rather. On the layer part of that shaft was also having inscriptions. Okay, so in case of that Sarnath capital or the Sarnath pillar, we have Asokan inscription, we have Kushana inscription, and we have Gupta inscription. Okay, so we have 3 inscription on that Sarnath pillar. Okay, so you have to remember that. So few more things I need to discuss here is capital was not always lion. Okay, so capital, sometimes capital was also having bull, elephant, like that. So other animals were also used as capital. I'll be also discussing about that, don't worry, in the later on, like particularly I'll be covering all the pillars which we found. So yeah, here next thing is one by one I'll be discussing about the important pillars of Mauryan age or the pillar architecture. Before that, here I have written few facts about that capital. So lion capital and other capital, other animals were also used as capitals. Okay, so lion capital was most famous example in the 4 lion capital on the small Sarnath pillar, which is now the national emblem of India. This capital features 4 lions standing back to back. Okay, so here you can only see 2, or if it is like this you can see only 3. So behind this there is one more lion which we can't see. Okay, single lion capitals are at Vaishali, Lauria Nandangarh and Kaushambi. Okay, if you need to remember this. Okay, others are other animal motifs featured included bulls, as I mentioned, which is in Rampurva, elephant in Dhauli, Odisha, and Sankissa, UP, and horses in Lumbini, representing various qualities such as strength, endurance, and wisdom. Next thing is that these animals often symbolize different aspects of Buddha's teachings, like lion representing Buddha's royal heritage and his powerful sermons, often called the lion's roar. Okay, so these facts are important for your exam, particularly the significance of this capital or these animals which was used in as a capital. Here one by one, if you want to remember, you can just associate these pillars from here, from the dots which I have given here. So through this map you can, if they are asking about that, okay, match the following, then you have to either they will ask about the type of capital these pillars are having, or they will ask about the geographical location where these pillars are. Okay, so this is how they are going to ask in the exam. So like that you need to remember. So that Sarnath pillar inscription, pillar is, I already mentioned that there is 4 lion on the capital, the national emblem of India. Vaishali, single lion capital, marks Buddha's last sermon. Okay, so there it was like I told you na, like he actually gave that bowl to the people of Lichavi or Vaishali. Okay, so in the discussion on that Vaishali stupa. And next is Lauria Nandangarh. It is also in Bihar, and it is one of the best preserved pillar inscription. Okay, so apart from that, one more we have in Lauria Ariraj. It is only like few kilometers distance from each other. So Lauria Nandangarh is and Lauria Ariraj. So both of these inscriptions, both of these pillars are actually in Champaran district of Bihar. And Ariraj is actually this is why I have not mentioned it. The pillar at Lauria Ariraj is not having any capital. Probably the capital was broken down. Okay, and but it is important that it is having 6 edicts of Ashoka. Okay, so for the context of that pillar edict, it is very important that Lauria Ariraj is very important in the context of edicts, because it is not having any sort of capital. We don't know which kind of capital it was having, but it is having 6 edicts of Ashoka. Next is Dhauli in Odisha, and earlier I mentioned, just now I mentioned that it is having that elephant capital. It marks the Ashoka's remorse after Kalinga war. It is important. Lumbini in Nepal marks the birthplace of Buddha. Here I have attached on map of minor rock edict, pillar edict and major rock edict. You can see the geographical location of these edicts, and if they are asking in the exam, try to remember these things. Okay, so few things you need to remember is that, see, there is in Kandhar there is minor rock edict and major rock edict. So these things are important. So sites which is having minor rock edict and major rock edict is important. Okay, so try to remember those sites. Okay. Next thing we have to discuss is about the cave architecture. And in the cave architecture, two important structures are there. First is chaityas and second is viharas. So as far as the Buddhism or the Buddhist caves are concerned, chaityas were the places of worship and viharas were the places where monks used to stay. And it is said that in Bihar, in the present day Bihar, there was a lot of viharas, and on the names of viharas only that place is called, or that whole area was called Bihar. Okay. Next is, let's start our discussion with the other features of chaityas. So chaityas and viharas are features of that Buddhist cave architecture. And in chaityas, as I said, it was the place of worship, and at the end of this chaitya, so it was kind of long rectangular hall. You can see that ending with a rear end which was in circle. Okay, and here was that kind of stupa, small stupa, or a kind of statue, if it was a Mahayan kind of place of worship. So that is a different kind of thing, but here it was the place of worship, and this whole structure was this big. Okay, and this outline is actually from the cave at Karle. Okay, Karle is Maharashtra, you must know that. So this structure was having 2 rows of pillars. You can see that there is one row and 2 rows of pillars, and doorways facing votive stupa. So doorways were actually facing the stupa. Okay, and a hall preceded by pillared veranda. So this was the pillared veranda. And apart from that, number of small square cells were also there. Whole structure cut out of rocks. Okay, and this was the place of worship or dhyan. So this whole structure was actually cut out of rock, single rock, or kind of that mountains, small mountain hills. It was converted into chaityas or viharas. Next is viharas. And viharas were not having any sort of uniform structure. So it was usually square and oblong hall in center, all preceded by veranda. Okay, like this. Okay, so this is the center, these were the all veranda, you can see that. And it was cut out of rocks, and this was the place for stay of monks. Okay, so here we are going to discuss a few important cave architecture or caves. And in order to do that, first we will be discussing about the Barabar Hills. Okay, so Barabar Hills is in Bihar. Okay, and you must know that it was donated by Ashoka. Okay, and there are 4 caves there. Actually, I have not mentioned here 4th one. So the important ones only I have mentioned. So it is having multiple caves with Ashokan inscriptions. That is very important. So first cave is bearing an inscription from the 12th regnal year of Ashoka, in which Ashoka declares that this hall was donated to Ajivika sect. Okay, and it is having polished granitic rocks resembling mirror. So it was highly polished. Right now it is not visible that it was polished, but the thing is, a few remains actually indicate that it was very highly polished, and it was some sort of resembling like a mirror. Since it was donated to Ajivika sect, you need to read about the Ajivika sect. You comment down who started this sect and what kind of mythologies and what kind of facts are associated with this sect. Okay, and do we have any source for the study of Ajivika sect? Okay, so these things you just comment down below, and I'll come back and I'll read your comments. Okay, because we have covered that in our last lecture on religion and philosophy in ancient India. Second cave is Lomas Rishi cave. It is having ornamental doorway shaped like wooden hut with carved, and it is having some carvings. An early example of Indian chaitya arch with elephant motifs. So you can see that there are elephants, like it is sculpted very beautifully here, and you can see that there is a resemblance of some sort of arch. Okay, so it is early form of arch, and yeah. So one thing you have to remember is that this was the kind of earliest examples when that perishable items were not getting, like it was not used for the construction of materials, construction of important structures. Rather they were converting the natural caves, or they were digging few caves for the use. Okay, so here you can see that this is the transition phase from that perishable items to rock sort of items in architecture. Okay, I'm not saying that there was no architecture or there was no caves in the Stone Age, but the thing is, or there was no kind of stoned architecture in Harappan Age, but the thing is there was a 1,000 years of gap, on more than 1,000 years of gap, when the people used that perishable items for construction material. So this was a sort of transition towards using stones as a construction material. So the Lomas Rishi cave, I already mentioned that it is having one arch, it is having animal motif, particularly the elephant. Okay, it is in the form of a sculpture on the gate. So this cave remains unfinished. No Ashokan inscription is found, possibly because it was constructed slightly later. Okay, maybe after the death of Ashoka, or maybe in the later part of Ashoka's life. So we are not sure about that. So the third cave in that Barabar Hills is Vishwakarma cave, and it contains Ashokan inscriptions of donation to Ajivika sect as well. It is divided into two rooms, a long rectangular hall and a semi-hemispherical chamber. Okay. Next is Nagarjuni Hills. Okay, so here we did that Barabar Hills, and here we are going to do Nagarjuni Hills. So we are going chronologically. So Nagarjuni Hills was actually donated by Dasrath Maurya. He was the grandson of Ashoka, and it was also donated to Ajivika sect. Okay, this is important. And there we have three caves, and first cave is Gopi cave, contains an inscription of Dasrath Maurya. Simple plan is there, single rectangular chamber with highly polished surface, and architectural style contains it is the continuation from that Barabar Hills tradition. Okay, so Barabar Hills and Nagarjuni Hills are having some same sort of architectural style. Next is Vadatika cave, and Vadatika cave is it also contains inscriptions by Dasrath Maurya. Again, it's a rectangular chamber with polished granite and similar in layout to Barabar caves. Vapiyaka cave is there, and it also contains the inscription of Dasrath Maurya. Okay, same basic feature remains same, and it is also dedicated to Ajivika sect. Next is caves at Ajanta. Okay, so technically we could have done this like Ajanta and Ellora, but here I have separated for the purpose of explaining it in a better way. Okay, so in the Ajanta caves, it is in Maharashtra, and it was believed that it was built in between 2nd century BCE to 6th century CE. So roughly between 800 years it was built. Okay, and it was used by Hinayan Buddhism, means that the sect of Buddhism which was very strict in following the original tenets of Buddhism, as indicated by Buddha. Okay, and Mahayana was actually which is having the concept of bodhisattvas. Okay, so here this cave, this whole cave, that complex is having 30 caves, which consist of viharas and chaityas, prayer halls and monasteries, as I mentioned earlier, and it is exquisite. It is having exquisite murals and sculptures. Like it is having paintings and sculptures depicting Buddha's life and Jataka tales. Okay, and it is also important for evidence on how that Buddhist iconography was developed, how Buddha was started getting worshipped in the form of imageries and all. Okay, so as I said, it was earlier used by Hinian sect and later it was used by Mahayana sect. So it is very important in the context that how that popularity of Mahayana became important thing in the later phase. Also, yeah, here I already mentioned that it is non-iconic to iconic Mauryan art. It is a transition. Okay. Next is Bhaja caves. It is also in Maharashtra, and it is a 2nd century BCE Buddhist Hinian sect cave. Okay, it features an early rock cut chaitya hall with a stupa inside that, and wooden structure influence ribbed ceiling mimicking timber. So it is not wooden, rather it is having some sort of that ceiling which is mimicking nature of wood. Okay, so they are trying to give that looks of a wood, and they are carving it on a stone. Okay, so some sort of like, see how obsessed they were with the wood. Okay, so earlier they were making things with the wood, now they are also, even if they are making caves in stone, they are making it look like a wood. Okay, it is simple in plan and it is functional vihara. Next is Karle cave. This is the best specimen of cave architecture which I showed you in the picture first when I was discussing the features. So this is the Karle cave in Maharashtra. It was built in 1st century BCE to 2nd century CE. So in the 300 years it was built and it was used, and it is having largest surviving chaitya hall, which is cave number 8, and maybe they will ask you in the exam that which cave number it is. So you can like remember that I could have written all the cave numbers, but there is no point, you won't be able to remember. So only important cave numbers you need to remember, only those I have written. So it is having pillars with richly carved capitals. You can see that these are the pillars and it is having richly carved capitals. Here you can see they might have depicted the Jataka stories. You can see there is one woman. Okay, so yeah, and stupa is at the end of the hall. As I said, it is the general plan, and the facade with large chaitya arch and sculpture. You can see that facade is having very large arch. Okay, next is a Buddhist cave architecture at Bedse cave, Maharashtra. Okay, it was built in 1st century BCE to Hinian Buddhism, and it features chaitya and vihara, well proportionate and fine carved pillars, lesser known but historically important, but we have very less remaining of this cave. Okay, next is Kanheri caves in Mumbai. Over 100 caves are spread over the hill, Kanheri hills, and you can see the transition from simple hills to elaborate chaityas and viharas in this architecture, in this whole the number of caves we have in Kanheri. Okay, and important center of Buddhist monastic activity in Western India. You can see that all of those were either in South India or North India, East India, so Bihar, Odisha, and that Karnataka. Okay, so with that context, Kanheri caves is very important because it is in the western side of India. Many inscriptions of royal patronage is there. I have not mentioned any specific name here. If you are interested, you can go and search, okay, in the relevant sources. If you want, I can give you the sources, but it is not possible to remember each and everything. Okay, so here my point is that I will be giving you the broader areas of the things, and so that like if they are asking directly, it is well and good. If they are not directly asking, then what you can do is you can use your peripheral knowledge to get to the correct option. Okay, I will show you how to use your peripheral knowledge through the PYQs. We'll be doing few PYQs in a few days. Okay, so few PYQs we'll be doing, 2-3 maybe, because we don't have enough time, but I will show you how to get to the correct answers. Okay, so even if you actually, this exam is about 50% skill and 50% knowledge. I'm telling you this on record. Okay, if you don't know how to get to the correct answer, even if you know few facts in that question, you won't be able to get the correct answer. But if you have enough skill, with the limited knowledge, you can solve the questions. Okay, I'll tell you how. So stay tuned for that. We'll be covering that. But here I'll continue with the Udayagiri and Kandagiri caves in Odisha. Okay, so other important caves, it is not necessarily Buddhist. Okay, so apart from Buddhist, as I said earlier, we have caves for other kind of believers as well. So Udayagiri caves, it was built in 2nd century to 1st century BCE, roughly 2100 years old, and it features Kalinga kings Kharavela's patronage. Okay, so there is inscription and natural caves modified to Jaina sanctuaries. So basically it was a Jaina cave architecture, and it is having rich sculpture facades. Okay, Rani Gumpha, which is called Rani Gumpha, and it depicts Jaina mythology, courtly scenes and religious processions of the age. Okay, so for the history of that age, it is very important for us. In the discussion on the other important caves, next cave is Ellora caves. Okay, we will be dividing it. I am not specifically dealing with the Jaina caves. Okay, so these Ellora caves were having also a very broad period till 9th-10th centuries, and it features part of Ellora caves complex. Here I am talking about only Jaina caves. So Ellora cave complex is having, see, there is a difference. Okay, so whenever it is Ajanta, think about 30 caves which is only dedicated to Buddhism, and if it is Ellora, think about 34 caves dedicated to Buddhism, Jainism and Hinduism. Okay, so and in Hinduism also, particularly there is Shaiva sect there, which is predominantly there. Okay, so whenever you are thinking about Ellora cave complex, you think that there are 34 kind of caves there. Okay, so first 1 to 12 belongs to Buddhism, next 13 to 29, roughly I think it is 17 in number, it belongs to Hinduism, and here you can see that cave number 16 is Kailasnath temple. Okay, maybe I have not mentioned it here, but maybe yeah, here Ellora Hindu caves. Oh yeah, Ellora Hindu caves here. Okay, so here I have mentioned that. Yeah, here cave number 16, you can see that Kailasnath temple. Okay, so remember that. So here 1st to 12 is Buddhist in nature, 13th to 29th is Hinduism in nature, and 38th to 34th is Jaina in nature. Okay, so these caves are highly ornate, carved ceilings, pillars and images of Tirthankaras. Which caves? I am talking about 30 to 34, not all. Okay, reflect multiple phases of Jaina rock cut architecture. Okay, next is about Hindu caves of Ellora. It was also built in 6th to 9th century CE. As I already told you that it is having a very long period. So here you can see that this 6th to 9th is earlier than 9th 10th. Okay, so Jaina caves were built later on. Okay, this you can derive from this fact. So Jaina caves were built later on. So about the Hindu caves, it was built by Rashtrakuta ruler Krishna I, that Kailasnath temple, and is an architectural marvel of entire, like, because it is you can see now, here is that Kailasnath temple. You can see that there was one hill, okay, like this, and he was actually carved out to make this beautiful temple. Can you imagine, like it was carved through top to bottom? Can you imagine how difficult it was? And in the age when we had limited technology, we were actually doing this kind of marvels. Okay, and it is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You can like you remember that if you are preparing for UPSC. So this depicts the scenes from this temple, depicts the scenes from, and it is scenes from Mahabharata, Ramayana and Shaiva mythology, and it is having very rich sculptures. Okay, you can see that there is lion, there is elephant. Okay, and these temple tops are also very highly decorated. Okay, can you imagine, like huge a kind of huge rock was carved out, and it was made into very tiny sculptural things, very detailed sculptural things. So it would have taken a lot of time, a lot of efforts from the people, and it was built by Krishna I of Rashtrakuta dynasty, as I already told. So other caves are dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu and Shakti. Okay, so Shaivism, Bhaktism and Shakti cult was also prevalent in those caves. Next discussion is about the Elephanta cave. It was built in 6th to 7th century CE. It was dedicated to Saiva mythology and is in Maharashtra. It is Elephanta Island is nearby Mumbai, you must know that. And talking about the feature, it is a Saivite cave temple and famous for Trimurti sculpture. Okay, three-headed Shiva. Okay, and a mixture of structural and rock cut technique. Okay, so it is not completely rock cut. So and it is also having rich iconography of Saivism. Okay, you will find a lot of sculptures of Shiva and the related stories of Shiva. Okay, next is cave at Badami. Okay, so it is in Karnataka. It was built in 6th century CE and it is also having Jaina and Hindu caves. Okay, so 4 caves. Out of 4 caves, 3 are Hindu and it is dedicated to Shiva and Vishnu. 1 Jaina cave is there, and it is also having some sort of Dravidian style of architecture. Okay, so it is influenced by Dravidian architecture. And what is Dravidian architecture? I will discuss it in the next lecture, and which is about the evolution of art and architecture in India, particularly the temple architecture. Okay, so I'll make like that evolution of temple architecture in India. Okay, it is having rich sculptural panels, and also Varaha and Nataraja and Jain Tirthankaras were also carved out, and you can see that there is a huge Nataraj sculpture here. Okay, and it is also the early part of Chalukyan art. Okay, so Chalukyas built it, and it is also the precursor for the development of that Dravidian style of architecture. So this was about the art and architecture, particularly the cave or the Buddhist architecture rather. So in the next lecture we are going to discuss the evolution of temple architecture. And for the time being, stay tuned to the lectures, and if you are new here, just subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that wherever I'll upload a lecture, you will be able to receive the notification. And for the ones who are new, you can join our study channel on Telegram, which I'll be putting the link of that group here, and you can join that. You can download the e-resources from there also, and I update the reading list each and every cycle. So it is for the time being. Thank you all, and keep learning. And for the exam, we will have few more lectures, and after that we will have some PYQ session as well. It will be live session. So for that matter, I need your support as well. Okay, so thank you all.